Today's progress. I don't feel the greatest today. Got this motor mount cut out with the plasma cutter. I was able to flip over the electrode and got that done. This one looks clean. It got cut off with a cutoff saw, but we're going to get in there with the grinder, clean that up, and see exactly where we're going to be at. Once we get that motor bolted up, I'm going to take this motor and drill out that blank and tap a 3/8 bolt into that blank. I could take the AC compressor and grind so much off of it to put a plate in there to have like a 4 bolt. I may do that, but the way I'm thinking, if 3 won't hold it, 4 never would. But the way that comes in there is it's got 3 spots, but you got the dipstick tube right there with the AC compressor. And the way that's set up, you could take and just put 4 bolts into it. But to get the bolts in there, the intake is right there. You can see that intake. It's kind of like low, but you got a bolt hole there, you got a bolt hole there. I might try to find some bolts that'll go in there. Might have to tap them out to 3/8, and then we'll drill and tap that for a 3/8 bolt. So, and then we'll have to move some of this wiring harness, whatever is in the way. You know, it's got a clip in that. You have to zip tie that up out of the way. The motor mount would be coming in like right here. Oh, I need enough room to make sure I can get that starter out just in case. So we'll have to mount it. It'll probably be like right here, you know, have a little tab coming out. Whatever we got to do, I want to make sure there's enough room for that starter to slide in and out. I don't want to have a problem with the starter and then you got to hook up to it with a motor puller and take the motor mount off just to get the starter out. There'll probably be plenty of room, to be honest. But to do that, it's going to be a lot. To drill that out and tap it for a 3/8 bolt, that ain't bad. I just have to let the motor down, lay it over, drill that, and then probably use the 2 holes that are there if I can find some bolts. If I can't find bolts that are long enough after I make a plate or whatever on that, we'll have to just have to bite the bullet and drill it and tap it for a 3/8. If I got to take the intake off of it, I will. That's not a big deal. I want to get that done before I put it in there. Make the plate for that one before I get it in there too. We got the motor mounts out. I had to slick them rails up, throw a little spray paint. I cut that exhaust off. And kind of the way I'm thinking on this is 2 wiring harnesses and making 1. So if I got to take that wiring harness off of that dash, I will, you know. Have to zip tie some of it up in there or whatever we got to do. I want to use my factory dash and use my factory steering column. That way it's got power brakes. The brakes are good as of yet. I see a brake line's pretty toast, but we'll deal with it once I have a problem. Other than that, I'm going to just let her wobble. Still waiting on the bolts. Bolts will be here pretty soon, but hopefully it gives me enough time to... I'll have to get some more tips for the plasma cutter. And I got to make a plate for this side. That'll be easy, but to drill and tap that, that's going to be a little bit of a pain. But the way I was looking at that, I looked it up on the internet. You know, the internet does lie to us, and we just got to figure it out from there. But all you got to have is the PCM hooked up to that thing, and then all that other stuff goes to the electrical part as far as brakes and all of that jazz. We will eventually, if I make sure as I unhook stuff, it's not going to make it not run. This plug here on this side, I was thinking, wow, I'm going to have to take and cut another hole for the PCM. I'm just going to pull that plug out, loosen it up, put my PCM wires into that and have it on the inside. You can put it to the outside. It's made to be on the outside. It's sealed, so could just zip tie it up and call it good. Being honest, you know, you just got to get the plugs through there and plug it up, and then the wiring harness has to come through there because it's got a key switch on that wiring harness. It don't have it on the instrument cluster like this one. But I will have to make sure I can hook up the multi-function switch so I can be able to flash the key. I'll have to put that instrument cluster in that dash out of the other one, and then I'll just strip the wiring harness off of that crossbar and put it in there. That's my thinking. You know, the real thing to do would be completely take it apart and gut the wiring harness and just run that wiring harness for that motor. But with the transmission, you know, it's going to be a manual throttle body, or you can buy one of those kits to where it's got a cable that pulls with the throttle body, because it got a cable style throttle body, but that would make it to where the cruise control wouldn't work. But you're not going to be able to use the cruise control because that motor, you would have to have the wiring harness, the steering column. The way the steering column goes in, it just ain't going to work, from what I see. So, and you'd have to hook all that up and make it work for your application. I just want to keep all the factory wires, run 2 wiring harnesses. That's what old boy did on the internet that I seen, but he put a different style motor in. He said, you know, I was thinking they was just going to send me out a whole nother wiring harness, and there is a place that offers, you could just send these 2 to them once you get it in there the way you want it, as far as the wiring harness is going to go in through the factory plugs, and be able to make all that together in there, and it'll fit, and there's no stretching of the wires. They could wire it up and make the instrument cluster a cluster job, just to be able to plug it up, make everything factory like you got. Is like $8 grand. It's a $5,000 truck. I mean, the sky's the limit if you got the money. You know, it could be just as factory, push button, radio, just like it is, whatever. Total sleeper. That's not a sleeper motor. I mean, it would take a lot to make it to where you could daydream. I just want something I can drive, man. You know, just basic truck. I'm good with that. If I got to put a throttle body in it, it's an aggravation of shifting it every time you want to move it. But at least you could go. And obviously you can flip the switches on it. A fluid shift is different than an electric shift. Let's just put it to you like that. You know, you're waiting for the fluid exchange. An electric shift is instant shift and instant go. And then, you know, obviously you're having problems with that transfer case, going to have to do the cable shift on that. I'm cool with that. And then we're going to have to make a bracket for the gas pedal on a hole and weld that up. So we had to go ahead and pull that dash pad off her, or the engine pad. Just get it out of the way. It itching me to death. It tore my hands all to pieces. So I didn't want to catch it on fire with a plasma cutter, so it had to go. Usually it don't catch on fire, but it was just, I was having problems. So once we get our bolts on there, next thing's next, clean that up with a grinder, drill us a 3/8 bolt hole, and see if we can't make 2 plates that we can mount to the motor, and then we'll take those motor mounts we got there and hopefully be able to weld something to the plate to hold the motor up from the sides, and we'll clean up the front of the motor. And I'm going to try to use those factory fans that came on that, if it'll stay cool. And they kick off and on by themselves. You know, we'll have to have 2 wiring harnesses in there. One will be powered up from the battery, and then, you know, you'll have to run a power to the other one to make the rest of it work. Now, as far as that body control module goes, you know, I might have to find another one and switch out the EEPROM chip, or we can just get a couple connectors and, you know, splice one in and just plug it up as far as that's what runs the headlights, taillights, reverse lights off the transmission. So you got backup lights, your running lights on your license plate, high, low beams, interior lights. I have done it for a derby car just because, you know, it's fried. And, you know, the power wire coming to that body control module, you can just put a resistor on it for 5 volts to go to your gas pedal. It just needs 5 volts to make the motor work with the drive-by wire. If you wire it up backwards, it will stick wide open. So you got to know what you're doing, and be careful. You know, make sure the drive line's out of it if you're going to do something silly like that. If you got to. We was building like a factory style, factory class derby car. Pretty much had to be just perfect as far as headlights, taillights, turn signals, brake lights, reverse lights. The horn had to work, the wipers had to work, all that had to work. But of course they take the glass out of it most of the time, or they would put something over it, or put something to the inside so nothing could come through, or whatever it was. I can't remember. I just helped wire it up, and then he was painting the door. Base coat, clear coat, real clean paint job. Like, wow, that's a nice car. He's like, hey, you know, I'm getting ready to crash it out. So, and they weld up the frame. They do all the stuff that they do to derby cars to make it last a little bit longer. But it was just bring a factory style car that, you know, everything had to work though. You know, they had the windows out of it and all that. It didn't make a whole lot of sense, but they put plexiglass in it, and, you know, just something to do. That they got classes. Anywho, next thing's next is the motor mounts. After we clean those up, and we was able to use the plasma, but I'm thinking we're going to have to get some more tips. But I was able to get it out. It looks a little butchered, but it's good enough. We'll get that cleaned up, so we know we'll have to have a plate one side or the other or whatever. That'll usually hold pretty much anything. But we're kind of limited on our room because of our steering column and everything. But that definitely ain't gonna go once you do get a bracket in there. You know, there's plenty of room, to be honest. I mean, you could probably just put a plate in there and weld it up there, but you gotta be careful how you put it in there because of that motor mount being in the way of the starter. Or you could just make it to where you take off the AC compressor. I mean, that wouldn't be bad. It's like 3 bolts. All depends on how it fits in there. I'm hoping it fits in there and you ain't got problems with the oil pan and all that, but, you know, time will tell. You know, I started looking at that, I was like, man, I hope I don't have problems with the oil pan. But it looks like it'll fit. Hopefully. So we'll just have to see what we got going on. But wish us luck. Waiting on some bolts. And then I've looked at the gas lines. I just run a rubber gas line into here. It's got a different style gas line, but all it needs is a supply, return, and a vent. And you can run a vent right off the gas tank. Might smell gas fumes a little bit, but you ain't got to have all that. We don't care if check engine lights on, but I'm going to put the cluster out of that wiring harness for the motor into there. That way we can flash the key. And we just got to hook up the multifunction switch. If we can't get ours to work because of the body control module, whatever the deal is with that. So, I think you got to leave a PCM in it. All that, I don't know. I'm still kind of reading up on it. I'm tired. You know, I was up reading on it, and, you know, they offer those motors in a bunch of cars. And just trying to get wiring schematics and all that good stuff. So we're still plugging along. Got to clean that up and drill a hole and tap a bolt and see if we can't make some kind of fabricable bracket to where we can get it in there with the steering column and everything, so we can bolt that motor up just the way it's supposed to be on the sides. And then that cleans us up on the front. Hopefully we can hook up those fans. I mean, if I have to, I'll hook up a power switch to them, to where when the key comes on, we'll have plenty of room in that box. When the key comes on, it gets power and it'll turn the fans on or off. I'd rather have it hooked up to a thermostat to where it kicks it on, kicks it off, and that way they don't run all the time. It wears them out. But I've done that before, especially for like a derby car. You know, just whenever the power comes on, it'll turn it on, it'll stay on till you turn it off. So, do a lot of that old fabric cobble. We used to cut them up, like cut all the body panels off, weld them up solid, pour concrete in the frame rails, weld up all the holes, box it in, vibrate it, and fill it up full of concrete. And we put a big motor in it too. You know, it'd make little hot rods and stuff. Just cut the floorboard out of something, slide it down on something. Go ahead and make your frame out the way you want it and do what you're going to do to it. Have you a piece of metal in there for the firewall. We just cut the firewall out, leave about 2-3 inches, slide her down, seam seal it, and pop rivet it on there. Quickie style. We used to do car shows like that to where bring what you can build in 5 days kind of thing. And all we do is just take a torch, pull the interior out, take a torch, and just hog it out with a torch and set it down over on a frame and whatever we got ready to go. And they had some kind of dirt car wiring harness for all that, and then they just run a little cheap wiring harness for the headlights, taillights, all that, and painted. I mean, we did a couple of them for Poppy Mountain Bluegrass Festival. Turned out pretty slick. And we sold them. I'll buy that. It's ready. I'll sell it to you. Got a title right here, buddy. We just do that and have some fun with it, and maybe drive it 1 or 2 spots, and you know, they're like, oh God, I gotta have it. You can have it. It's for sale. We used to do that, but you gotta pay taxes on it. Now, this is just something to drive. I ain't doing all that. You know, like I say, I don't want to give up on the truck. Pretty nice looking truck. It's decent. And all I like is getting the seals. I think I found some glue for the driver's side door seals. Somebody got in there with a coat hanger and tore the seals out. So we get those fixed. Hopefully the power windows work. All that too. So we want to keep it all working. I might even be able to shift the transfer case. And we'll have to do something with the transmission. I was even looking at that. Like, it's got a 4-speed just like that. But I don't know if the shifting points would be off on it. As far as the engine and whatever with the transmission to make it shift together. You might be able to take that plug where it goes in there, figure out what wires are what, torque converter, you know, the shifter, and just splice it in to this controller and have it work. You know, just take that plug, cut it, put some butt connectors on it, extend the wires, take the plug off this factory whatever, and if it's getting signal to it, it's electronic shift just like this one. So we might be able to cobble something together. If everything works with push button 4-wheel drive, I might just pat myself on the back. The way I looked at it, it's all the same color wires and everything, you know. So, but we're definitely going to have to do something with the transfer case. I don't like the way that shifts. I want to be able to do it manually, and when I stick it in gear, I know it's good. Now that actuator on front, you know, all you got to do is have a power and ground to it, pushes that ram out, engages a 4-wheel drive. So if I have to, I took the instrument cluster out of this thing just to see if it would run without it in there. So we know all that's good. And you won't have to have it to make it run or whatever as far as transmission, transfer case, all that. And then we can put that other instrument cluster in there so we can kind of wet the flash the key. And some of that stuff might work like for the battery, you know, to let you know it's getting charged and all that. So off of the other wiring harness, the motor wiring harness. That's enough gabbing. That's just kind of an update for today. We did a little something. Try to do something every day until we can really crank on it. We can really crank on it. Once we get our bolts, you get that mount down in there. You get that baby down in there, it'll be full steam. You know, we'll be able to pull the dash out, figure out the wiring harness, get it all on there. Obviously, you're not going to have everything off of that motor because it's going to have the turn signal or the headlight wiring harness ain't going to be on it. None of that. So that opens up relays for power, to key on power and stuff like that for doing hopefully what we need to do. So, and it can charge the battery, and the alternator works, and it'll run the motor. And then, you know, you're definitely going to have to flash the key for the security mode. So we got to hook one up, hook another one up, but you turn the power on, and if those headlights, taillights, and all that work, now that body control module, if it starts acting up to where it wants to do funny stuff, we'll bypass all that jazz. You know, we'll have to, it'll really take some time to do that, to de-pin it. And you could actually get some connectors to where you could put a longer connector in there and just connect it up and make it look decent. You know, it don't look too cobbled. You know, so we'll see. I don't know. I think you gotta have, I'd have to have a printer to print off the wiring diagrams and all that. You can get a cordless printer, ain't a big deal, but to have the paper and the ink to kind of chase down wire, that might take some time, but if we can get it in there and get it running, I'll be happy. If we can figure out, we get the motor in it and it starts and runs, and we'll put some toggle switches on it, and then I'll see if I can't figure out a way to make one work up. And the shifting points might be off, but I doubt it. Same colors. It's a 4-speed with overdrive, just like that truck. You know, as long as it's reading a tack signal, it should, in theory, shift it. Now, that would be pretty slick, if you ask me. You just have to de-pin it from the motor harness and hook it up to that transmission. You know, if it's reading, you know, it should shift. But that's enough for me today. It's Labor Day weekend. I hope everybody has a great weekend. We did go out there and play with the flowers a little bit. I'll show it to you. They got limp looking. And I did tie it up one more time. I'm out of string, so that's going to be a season. I came out here this morning and the caterpillars were froze solid to the plants. Was able to pick what we could see off. It's just losing those blooms to the cold, I guess. But I did tie them up a little bit more. Run one more string across there. I tied this down because I wasn't going to put no more string on it. It's already trying to come up, so not going to pick nothing else off of it. But the blooms, you can see they're dying. That cold might be bothering them. Just the blooms keep dying on it. See, that one same way. And we got an extra string for whatever. We got them tied back enough to where they can't lean into whatever, and hopefully we get a little something else out of them. If not, oh well, we had a good season. It's supposed to get cold. Stay that way.